Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Samara and today we're gonna do the January wrap-up. I read a total of 7 books in the month of January, which I think is a good number considering I really enjoyed myself this month. Of course, they were mostly fantasy. I read 4 novels, 2 novellas, and 1 manga. We're gonna start the video with the only non-fantasy book I actually read in the month of January, Artificial Condition, Book 2 in the Murderbot Diaries, written by Martha Wells. Artificial Condition came out in 2018. It's 158 pages and has a rating of 4.28 on Goodreads. The Murderbot Diaries is this quite well-known sci-fi series consisted of novellas that are all about the life of this rogue sec unit that calls itself Murderbot. These are the perfect gateway into the sci-fi genre. At least for me, I have not regret my decision to start sci-fi with the Murderbot Diaries for a second. They're perfect. Murderbot is a pessimist. He's very scornful of humans and he's always trying to hide the fact that he has hacked its own governor module. He's technically a rogue robot and he's thinking for himself. Because the human clients would be scared of him and because he's afraid that they would turn him into the company where they would erase every piece of memory he has. So with all that said, Artificial Condition was so much better than the first book, for me. Murderbot is now officially one of my top most favorite characters ever. And you might be interested in the fact that this series has been picked up for adaptation and the actor playing Murderbot is Alexander Skarsgård, which is just perfection. Starting the series, I had no idea there's going to be an adaptation of this, but once I finished the first book, the news came out and I found out that Alexander Skarsgård, which is one of my favorite actors, is going to play Murderbot. So when I started the second book, the pictures came together, everything fit, everything clicked in my mind, and now Murderbot officially has a face in my head. I cannot be any happier about that adaptation. Coming back to the story, in the second book, Artificial Condition, we're following Murderbot as he's trying to uncover the truth of his past. He's still trying to hide, he's completely rogue, and he meets this new character called Art. The description says you don't want to know what the A stands for. ART is his name. The interactions between Murderbot and Art are priceless. I had so much fun. It's a very short novella. 150 pages, it's not much, but I had so much fun reading the interactions between these two. When they don't trust each other and Murderbot is very pessimistic. He doesn't want to, trust anyone with his condition. It was perfect. So if you're like me and you're looking for an easier way to find your way to the sci-fi genre without having to tackle one of those 700 pages heavy sci-fi books, the Murderbot Diaries is perfect for a starting point. And there's an adaptation coming out, so just go read it. I think I almost forgot to say I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. Did I forget? I don't know. The second book on the list is In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace. This is book 1 in the evenfallwitchesb&b. It came out in 2021. It has 336 pages and a rating of 3.96. This one was a bit out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna tell you why. Oh, and by the way, try not to be scared of the cover. This is actually a very good book. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Let me tell you what it's about. In short, this book is a cozy murder mystery in a small town with witches. Our main character is this young witch called Bryn, who's living with her aunts and her uncle in this bed and breakfast that the family runs. The story starts when a guest dies in the B&B, the police start investigating, and apparently she's been killed. So now one of the aunts is one of the main suspects, and Bryn has to start investigating herself in order to help her aunt, to clear her name. This book was as cozy as a murder mystery can be. At first, I thought that's a very weird combination, but it works. It works really well. It gives off the vibes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch heavily, which was why I actually picked up this book. And the characters and the family bond is really good. But at first, I did not connect with the story because going into the story, I expected a fantasy, but this is more murder mystery. The plot is heavily resting on the mystery. Now, as a reader, I gravitate toward fantasy, so that kind of disappointed me a bit at the beginning, but once the story progressed, I became so much used to the characters and their problems that I just didn't care anymore. It was really good. This book has a more mature approach to human feelings, especially feelings of loss and grief and how you cope with that kind of thing. That was done really well in this book. And I think the way the family members supported each other in this book made everything so much more valuable to me. The ending of this book really worked for me, not because of the murder mystery or the plot twist, because I'm not a murder mystery reader normally, but because of the way it tackled the loss, the grief, the way Brynn has to do specific things to get past the trauma that she's gone through. That was shown very beautifully in the ending of this book, and I immediately upgraded the 3 to 4 stars, and I decided to actually continue with the series. There's a second book in the series so far as I know, and I will be checking it out in the future because these characters have grown on me. I really like Aunt Nora. She's really something. There's a cat, there's a crow. It's quite interesting. But I do recommend this book to those of you who are actually fans of murder mystery and fantasy. These two together could really work well for you. I don't know. Check it out if you're interested. It's a good book. But have it in mind that this book doesn't have romance. At least the first one doesn't have any romance in it. And it deals with darker themes like loss and grief. Number 3 on the list was my favorite read in January. This was one of my most anticipated fantasy releases for 2024. Emily Wilde's Map of Otherlands, written by Heather Fawcett. This book came out in January. It's the second book in the Emily Wilde series. The first one is called Emily Wilde Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I do have a spoiler-free review for that one too. If you want to check it out, I'll put the link up there. I know I'm saying it too much, but let me tell you, I enjoyed this book even better than the first one, and I loved the first book. But this was just better. Reading the first book was a bit slower for me, at least the first 100 pages of it, because it's historical fantasy and you have to get used to the language of the book. You have to get used to the footnotes, the way Emily takes note of everything for her encyclopedia. But in the second book, you've already taken all those steps. You already know how Emily's mind actually works, and it's an amazing experience to be back in this world. In short, this book was fast, fun, and delightful. I ended up giving this book 4.75 out of 5 stars. Now, let me briefly tell you what this story is about without spoiling. Emily Wilde is a professor of dryadology at the University of Cambridge. The setting of the story is early 1900s. In the first book, she's on this quest to write the first ever written encyclopedia of fairies, of the folk. So she travels to this remote village called Ravensvik in Utherland. Her main goal is to conduct field study, get all the data regarding the folk of the area, get all the data from the villagers in Ravensvik, and collect as many samples as she can in regards to the folk of Utherland. Now, Emily has this rival called Wendell Bumblebee, who she doesn't trust, but Wendell kind of considers himself Emily's only friend, Emily's best friend, so he tags along all the time. He's also a scholar of dryadology, but because he's a man at that time, he gets more attention than Emily, and Emily has kind of beef with that a little bit. So you can expect a lot of witty banter from these two. Emily is the grumpy one, Wendell is the sunshine. The contrast between these two characters is amazing. Emily is strict, she's practical, she wants to do her job, she wants to be focused. Wendell is lazy, he doesn't want to do field studies, but he's also worried about Emily doing it alone. He's charming and he's sociable, while Emily is socially awkward. That's the story of the first book. In the second book, Emily has this new project to focus on, Map of Otherlands. Her relationship with Wendell has grown a little bit, but this is a slow burn romance, guys. So do not go into this book expecting spicy stuff, but it's really cute and it's really good, I promise you. The fairy image in Emily Wilde series is much closer to the classical version, the darker version of fairy folklore that, what's been popular these last couple of years. The winged fairies, the shadow daddies. Put that aside, that's a different thing. Emily Wilde's fairy and folk are closer to the original picture of fairy. The ones you can't trust, the ones that might actually eat you, the ones that you cannot make a deal with and expect something good to come out of it. It's very risky. Everything about them, it's very risky because they don't follow normal logic. And I think Heather Fawcett has embraced that and kept the balance still very well in these books. We have new characters and new bonds taking shape in the second book, and we also have interactions with the smaller folk like Poe, and there's a new character added to the story which I love. These parts made this book so much more enjoyable for me. I highly recommend Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairy, Emily Wilde Map of Otherlands. They're just really amazing. And of course the story doesn't end in the second book. There's gonna be more. Nothing's announced yet, but I'm looking forward to that. Number 4 on the list is a continuation of one of the longer series I've been reading for a while, The Shadow Rising, Book 4 in the Wheel of Time series, written by Robert Jordan. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what's happening. I'm not quite sure it's fair to say that this book is better than the previous three. It's not that. I think finally I'm at a point that I feel more comfortable with the world, with the lore of Wheel of Time, with the characters. I know the places much better, and my mind can track the story in a much more comprehensible way. I think that's why I enjoyed this book more. To tell you very briefly what the story of Wheel of Time is about, this is a very, very vast story with a large cast of characters, and it just keeps growing and growing. But the main plot of the story is that we have this chosen guy who has to accept his destiny, face the Dark One, and save the world or destroy it in the process. The outcome is just likely. Both of them can happen. And the story is not as simple as that sounds. It's so much bigger. It's so much better. If you're one of the more patient fantasy readers and you can actually see yourself reading 14 long books in order to wrap your mind around this big story, I highly recommend it. I do not regret picking up The Wheel of Time. It's, despite its shortcomings, I mean, it's an older book. It's very classical. The female characters are not written that well. We have that, we know that. But the story itself, the big scope of things, is just so satisfying to figure out for yourself and not just watch the show. To actually read book after book yourself and get the picture in your head. It's very confusing at first. Wheel of Time is the first huge epic fantasy that I actually picked up that was this lengthy, and I was afraid. I was really afraid of starting it and not understanding what's happening, and that happens at the beginning because you just can't wrap your head around it at first, but you get used to that and you get to experience something so amazing. So yes, I highly recommend it. In The Shadow Rising, the pace picks back up. We have so much more of the characters revealed to us. We know so much more about the lore. I especially love Nynaeve and Elaine's POV in this book because Nynaeve is one of my favorite characters, even though at times she's written carelessly a little bit, but she's still really good. So their POV was perfect. We get to see a lot more of Perrin's side of the story. That was also really satisfying. Unfortunately, in The Shadow Rising, we don't get to see Matt enough. Not enough for my like. I want to see more of Matt, but in this one, his role is a little bit smaller than the previous one, that the Dragon Reborn. But it's okay, I'm patient, I'm gonna wait. Rand's storyline, on the other hand, is getting out of hand. It's just like, progressing at a fast pace. I just can't keep up with it. So that's also really good, but it can get confusing. You have to focus for Rand's parts. But again, unfortunately, I didn't enjoy Egwene's parts in this book very much because her character is getting a little bit confusing. She could have been written better. I mean, she should have been, but that's okay. It's a very long series. We have room to explore and expand. But overall, I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed seeing the picks, the hints that Robert Jordan is starting to throw our way for the future. I just can't wait. I just finished this one and I will be starting The Fires of Heaven probably tomorrow. So I'm not even waiting. Number 5 on the list is volume 17 of One Piece, written by Eichiiro Oda. I gave this volume 4 stars. It was really good. At the end of this volume, we're given a hint to the introduction of Ace in the next volume. So I'm really excited to meet Ace because I think he's gonna be one of my favorites. But at the same time, I really hope this Baruch Works doesn't get too lengthy because they talk too much and I want to focus on the Straw Hats. For number 6 and 7, I finished the Fantasy Reverse Harem that I started at the end of 2023. It's on my previous wrap-up, Heart Hassle. Book number 3 was called Crimes of Cupidity, and then a novella after that is For the Love of Cupidity. I ended up giving these books both 3 stars. They were good. I enjoyed the third book to the series. I thought it ended on a good note. These were fun and very fast to read. The whole story of the series is about this Cupid who's not very good at her job because she gets jealous of the people she actually makes fall in love. She wants to fall in love herself, but she doesn't have a physical body, so she's jealous. The story starts when she kind of gets called to the Cupid headquarters and she gets punished. And for punishment, the boss sends our Cupid to the Fae realm. And, it's the Fae realm. It gets really interesting there. These were very lighthearted. I had a lot of fun reading them and they were very quick. So if the mood strikes and you're in need of a fantasy reverse harem, you might want to check these out. They're fun. Okay guys, that was it for the January wrap up. I had a lot of fun this month. and my average rating was quite high. Most of the books I gave above 4 stars, so it was really good. Even though the number wasn't very high, I still enjoyed myself a lot. Tell me in the comments if you read any of these books and what was your favorite read of January. Mine was Emily Wilde's Map of Otherlands, without a doubt. As always, thank you for watching today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!